Hey, what's up, everyone? Ralph here. So, for the first time in a decade, credit scores have gone down, right? And as more and more borrowers fall behind, this could possibly continue. And for those of you, when it comes to credit scores, right? There's five factors, right, that affect your credit score, right? The two most important factors are obviously payment history, which account for 35%, and then you got credit utilization, which accounts for 30%, and that's the amount of credit that you use relative to your credit limit, right? So you want to make sure you keep that ratio very low, right? People recommend 30%, but me, I recommend as low as possible, below 10% if you can. But obviously, the more credit that you use on that credit card limit, the more of a hit that's going to take on your credit score. So when it comes to your credit score, obviously the most important things you want to protect is obviously making sure you make your payments and obviously keeping that debt low on that credit card. But for a lot of people are racking up debt. Right. Obviously, there's articles that talk about how, when it comes to credit card debt, it hit $1 trillion. And then you have also people using buy now, pay later. So people are continuing to use the debt. Now, what's holding it up, obviously, is the fact that people have jobs, right? We have a low unemployment, right? And as long as people have jobs, they could continue to make those minimum payments, even though they're maxing out their credit cards or they just continue to rack up debt. Like even for myself, I remember when I was in debt, when I had financial issues, I never missed a payment, right? I never missed a payment. The only time I missed a payment was when obviously when I left my job, and also when I voluntarily decided not to make payments because I wanted to focus on my business, and I said, you know what, I'm not making payments on these credit cards until I start making money on this business. Now, I wouldn't recommend any of you do that, but that's just something I did, right? And eventually, once my business started making money, I was able to pay all that back, so I was good. And I never got in, and right now I'm debt free. So, but I think for a lot of people, they're able to maintain this debt and maintain the credit scores because they're obviously making sure they're making payments. Now, of course, when you're racking up the debt, like I said, one of the factors that's important is the credit utilization. If you continue to use the debt, that's going to impact your credit score. So maybe that's what's going on right now. Obviously, people are starting to fall behind on payments, and there's layoffs that are happening. So maybe it's starting to catch up to people. But according to this article on CNBC, obviously it says credit scores decrease for the first time in a decade as more borrowers fall behind on payment. So what we're gonna do is it's a quick article, so I'm gonna read that real quick, and then we'll go over like some of the factors that are impacting why credit scores are falling for the first time in a decade. So we start off and it says blah, blah, blah. It says, so consumers have been increasingly relying on credit cards to make ends meet, and it may finally be catching up with them. Like I said, eventually it does. Like once you and someone that's been in had $30,000 of credit card debt, eventually it does catch up to you, right? You in your mind you're thinking so many different ways in which how you could make these payments. You do your cash advances. You take this credit card to pay off this credit card with a cash advance, and eventually it gets to a point where you're tapped out and you have no choice but to go into default. Right? And especially with the way our country is, we have $34 trillion in debt, and eventually it's going to catch up to the United States. How, when, no one knows, but eventually it will catch up to you. It's just a matter of when. So for a lot of people, obviously the consumer, it's catching to them a little bit quicker. So it says the national average credit score, which was steadily increased over the last decade, fell to 717 from a high of 718. And now when I saw this, right, I was like, that's it. I was like, it went down 1 point. I was like, that's nothing. But then when you think about this is the first time this happened in a decade, then you start to say, all right, you know what, if because all it's done is gone up, right? The credit scores have only gone up in a decade. So the fact that you see it go down only 1 point, although that's like little, I mean that's just a sign of you want to be cautious of that. You want to keep your eye on that, right? So it said in the beginning of 2023, according to a report from FICO, developer of one of the most widely used lenders, FICO scores range from blah, 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 whatever. So, and then it says it's a notable milestone, said Ethan Dornhelm, FICO's vice president of scores and predictive analytics. It said this is the first time in well over a decade that the score went down. All right. So now, if you look at this chart, it shows average FICO score in the U.S. Right. You see it right here. It goes down. In 2008, obviously we had that recession, you got the housing crisis, so a lot of people went into foreclosures. So that makes sense why the credit score went down. But then 2010 it goes up and then goes down, and then 2014 is the last time it went down, and since 2014 has nothing but it's gone nothing but up. Right. You see up here when it gets down to 2020, it the flat line, and then it goes up more, and then now for the first time it's gone down in 2024. I'm in October 2023, so it's gone down, right? So that's something you want to keep your eye on, right? It's been a while since the credit score has gone down. So as you keep reading, so the average nationwide credit score is bottom at 686 during the housing crisis more than a decade ago. When there was a sharp increase in foreclosures, they steadily ticked up higher until COVID-19 pandemic, when the government stimulus programs and a spike in household savings helped scores jump to a historic high in April 2023. So it says high interest rates and high prices have weighed on most Americans' financial standing. Consumers as a whole are falling deeper into debt, causing an increase in credit card balances and an uptick in missed payments, FICO found. And that's the thing, like when you see people, obviously you have the feds, right? They increase the interest rates. So if you're someone that's looking for a mortgage, if you have credit card debt, you're looking to buy a car, all these, it's going to cost you more to finance, to get a loan on these items, right? And the fact that people, then you factor in inflation where things are costing more. And if you're using that credit card to buy these goods that are costing more, and you're not paying it off every month, then obviously that's going to cost you a bunch of money because of the interest rates increase. So when it comes to using your credit card, obviously we all know the smart thing to do is like, if you can't pay off your balance every month, then you shouldn't be using that credit card, right? And this is coming from someone that's been in credit card debt twice in his life, $30,000, right? I know from experience, right? If you don't have the money, don't use it, right? Because all you're gonna do is dig yourself deeper into a hole. Okay, and when you're talking about interest rates being the way they are, and then the fact that inflation, cost of goods and services have increased, and if you're using that credit card and you're not paying off that balance off every month, then it's just going to cost you a whole bunch of money when it comes to interest payments, right? And that's just a waste of money, man. You do not want that type of debt, because it's you're talking about the average interest rate on a credit card is like what, 21%. That's ridiculous. Like imagine getting that return if you were investing in the stocks, or you had any investments and you were getting a 21% return on that investment. These banks are raking in money by just you having all this debt. All right, so it says as of October, the average credit card utilization was 35%. All right, that's up from 33%. Remember, people recommend below 30, right? I recommend as low as possible. So it says a year earlier, and just over 18% of borrowers had more than 30-day past due missed payment against their credit card accounts, up from 16.5% the year before. So look at it, says just over 18% had more than 30-day past due, right? 18%, that's up from 16.5%. So more and more people are not making their payments within their minimum payments within the 30 days, right? Okay, so that's something that's important. That also impacts your payment history, which is also that has a huge impact on your credit score. So another likely driver is that savings rates have trended back down to zero, and those savings cushions have many consumers have disappeared. And they talk about this like the COVID savings cushions, right? I mean, they talk about this, but like they say that's a factor. Like now that's going away. Like I mean, how much money were people getting? Like how long? Like that was back in 2020, 2021. Like I mean, how much money are you getting? That you can go through that in a couple months. So I don't know how they keep using that as a reason for why people aren't able to make payments, or their savings is going down. Like I would think that stimulus money is gone within a couple of months. But yeah. So it says, all right, so it says during the pandemic, most Americans benefited from a few government-supplied safety nets, including the large injection of stimulus money. That left many households sitting on a stockpile of cash that enabled more cardholders to keep their credit card balances in check. But the cash reserve is largely gone after consumers gradually spent down their excess savings. We are pretty far removed from the pandemic level mitigation program, so consumers are very much confronted with making good on their credit obligations with little in the way of stimulus checks or government defined accommodations program. So obviously the government was giving a whole bunch of money to people. Obviously during the shutdowns, during COVID, they get these big old stimulus packages in Congress, and they do whatever they want with their money. So so for a lot of people, obviously people were, I guess, not living off that, but it was obviously supplementing their life, helping them out. But when it comes down to this, like overall, like you need, if you're someone that credit card debt, you have to get rid of this credit card debt, man. That thing is a burden on your life. It will stop you from doing everything that you need, right? Imagine like everything that you want to do, and like all that money that you're making, it has to go to paying down this debt, right? It's just going to stop you from doing the things that you want to do. And when you're able to eliminate all that debt, it's such a freedom to just be able, like, you're not a slave to a lender, right? This is the stuff that you want to avoid, man. It's such a relief that you don't have to worry about all your money going to somebody else that's not helping you build wealth long term. And people have to really and I understand, people are doom spending. People are just getting to a point where they don't have trust in the economy. They're tired of their jobs. So it gets to a point where you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the life that I have now. I'm just going to spend it, on experiences, on vacations, on the things that's supposed to make you happy. But in the long run, that's just going to worsen your lifestyle, worsen your way of living, your cost of living. I mean, your way of living long term, and that's not something that you want to do, right? Because things happen, you get older, and obviously health issues. You want to make sure that you secure your financial future. So I think. I mean, obviously, this is something to keep an eye on, because obviously it went down only 1 point. It's interesting to see how maybe later in this year how far it goes down. Because obviously, if as long as people have jobs, people are going to be able to make payments on their credit cards. But obviously, eventually, like I said, if you're racking up debt, eventually you're going to tap out, and you're going to have no choice but to just default. So those are my thoughts. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Hit the like button, share. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. All right, so guys, take care. Have a good one. Later.